All right, people are joining in. Let's give them a few minutes or a few seconds. Let's join pretty quick. How was the last session, guys, with Nicole? Was it fun? A lot of good content? Drop it in the chat. What'd you guys learn? What was something interesting? I'm getting a lot of thumbs up. That's great. Excellent. Thanks, Jay. Mm-mm. Okay, we got about 200 people in now, so we can go ahead and get this thing started. Really excited to talk about this topic in this panel today with Dave and Hope because I think a big challenge a lot of firms face is they find the perfect software for the firm, but they just can't get their team to actually use it, right? And if no one uses it, it's worthless, right? You got to get your team to adopt it. So you can do everything right, but if the implementation fails, you're just back where you started. So this is going to be a really good topic to talk to hear from some actual firm owners who've gone through this and talk through what they did to ensure a successful implementation. But before we intro them in, I did want to ask, drop it in the chat. Have you struggled with this problem? Is this something is it like pulling teeth getting your team to actually use the software? I'm curious to see who else has felt this. Yep, Shannon. Okay, Katie, Carrie. Yeah, yeah. Wow, there's a lot of people. This is a big problem. A lot of firms face. So let's go ahead and kick this off. I'll start it off with you, Dave. If you don't mind telling everyone a little bit about yourself and the firm.
Hello, everyone. Real excited to be here. My name is Dave Kersting. I'm with Capovario, based out of Denver, Colorado, doing bookkeeping and concierge consulting. I'm excited again to be here with Hope and Sharam to talk about all things workflow and how to get your employees really engaged. So I don't know if you want me to answer your question right off the bat, or if we're going to pass over to Hope first.
Yeah, let's let Hope go in and give an intro first, and we can go from there.
Hey, I'm Hope Blankenship. I'm one of the owners at ToTheRescue Bookkeeping. We are stationed, I like to say, in Biloxi, Mississippi, but we have owners and employees nationwide. And we are a full-service bookkeeping, payroll, training, cleanup, and cash accounting firm.
Perfect. Hope, how many people do you have at your firm?
There's 13 of us total.
Okay, perfect. A lot of adoption to push there.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you guys for those intros, and let's jump on in. So I think one interesting place to start when we think about implementation is wonder, before the actual implementation takes place, is there anything you guys do to set your firm up for success, right? Like before you actually start implementing it, is there like some stuff you do in advance to ensure like the implementation is going to go smoothly, or are you going to get adoption by your team? And we can, Dave, if you want to go first, we'd love to hear that from you.
Well, I think my answer is going to be a little different than Hope's in the fact that I was fighting my team against using a workflow app. We were using an app that kind of did all the things we thought we needed to do that was directed by me. And my team came to me and said, we're using Financial Sense. And then they kept saying it until I said, okay, we're using Financial Sense. And a lot of that had to do with our working between with other firms like the profit constructors on utilizing Financial Sense. And so for us, my team identified what my pain point was. And they said, hey, this other app is working. This is going to help us. And this is where we want to be. So when we say, adoption, my team was adopted. It was getting the owner adopted and getting me to do what I needed to do. And so my team kind of analyzed the software, identified that this is where they wanted to be, and identified my own pain points on what I needed the team or what I needed to focus on for the team.
Mm-hmm. So your situation is a little bit different, Dave, like you were talking about, because you were working with another firm, and that's how you guys got exposed to your current workflow software now, which is Financial Sense. So it kind of came from the bottom up, like you're talking about, which is very interesting. Hope, how about you?
So I like to call myself a serial tech tester. I always like testing lots of different things. When Financial Sense came out, though, I mean, y'all met such a great need in our industry, because I feel like sometimes as owners or managers, we are all serial tech testers. We try everything. And, it'll fill 85% of the need, but not the other, 15 we need, things like that. And so yours presented at the perfect time for our industry when we really needed, everything to work. And then the fact that you're open to all of our suggestions. So my team feels free to give me feedback on what they're looking for at their point. And we're free to give you guys feedback from them and from our management standpoint of what we need it to do. And then y'all are open to implementing those changes for our industry. And that's huge. Accounting people are very opinionated, as I'm sure you've learned. And we want things to just work the way that they're supposed to, or and we like to be heard. And I treat my team the same way. I want to hear from them because they're using it from a different point of view than I'm using it, and so the collaboration and all of that stuff from the bottom up is really important.
So it sounds like when picking, like a key takeaway here is like when looking for like a new tool, like a workflow or any type of software, really, it's about first getting buy-in from your team, right? So they're like willing when the process comes to do the heavy lifting that's going to take to actually start using it for that change, right? I'm curious though, was there anything you did in particular to kind of help your team get that buy-in? Like, did you schedule demos? Like, did you first do a demo and then schedule a demo with the whole team to see the software? Or was there anything you went about? Like, what did that process look like of getting buy-in? Dave, it was a little different for you because you guys were just kind of thrown into it through a partnership. Like, because I know you guys do co-firming with some other firms. But Hope,
I think that there still is, with what Hope's talking about with getting your buy-in. If you look at, like Hope and I were talking about, what is the possibility of achieving that 100% adoption of software? And I was joking with her because I said, well, there's never going to be 100% software adoption. One, because there's always things changing in the software. But then I started thinking about it, and the part that we were laughing about is that, hey, we're really talking about the team adoption, not overall adoption. And I think that, we've seen in the chat, adoption, there's just people that don't want to. There's just, I'm used to writing things down on a sticky note. It helps me remember it. Typing it in, I don't remember it as much. It's how do you cater to what their needs are? But you have to understand what those are first. And I think in the same world, Financial Sense specifically, they're reaching out. We're doing Workflow Con because you want to learn what people need and how can we better serve the community. I think that's the key. Education, understanding, repetitiveness, talking about pain points, communicating what those pain points are, because you never know what might change. If you learn a new feature and you're like, hey, Hope, I just figured this out. It's super exciting. Celebrate the moment.
Hope, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with all those things. For me, it's really focusing on executing the vision, the why behind the what, right? If we're going to implement a software, I'm not trying to just add a new thing for you to do. There's a reason behind it. And oftentimes I think as owners, we know what that reason behind it is, but we may not communicate that effectively. And so then people just think we're doing this to do this, but executing and communicating the vision and the why. And then even going back to Nicole's previous session where it's like educating your team on the expectations of how to use the software. So before there's a software implementation, my management team, like we've written down the steps of what our expectation of the use of that software is going to be, right? It can be fluid because we're always going to be changing and implementing new things, but there needs to be a baseline, clear, communicated expectation of when the software is used for what and why. And then I think you get that collaboration with that because everyone then feels part of the team and they understand what your expectation is for that to be used.
And I kind of talk about that, being in the construction industry, we talk a lot about foundations and building walls. And, I think that when we look at, Financial Sense in its, or workflow or how we do any of our apps and adopting it and having our team members excited about it is ownership has to put together what that foundation looks like. Here we're going to put up the wood, the boards, the walls, and then our team is going to come in and help us put the carpet in and paint it and kind of refine it and make it look pretty. But then what happens when that's finished? You don't just move into a house and not buy furniture. So the furniture and the TVs and the drapes, that's when new features are coming out. That's when you're keeping it alive each week in a meeting that like my team has. Each week in our team meeting, we save time to talk specifically about financial sense. What are we doing in financial sense? What's new in financial sense, and how can we improve it, or what's better? That's, again, I just bought another TV for the room. I just got a new couch, and that's the continuation or keeping the conversation alive. Because like Hope said, it's not in and out. It's not here's the program, and then if we don't talk about it again or keep it alive as owners, our team isn't going to continue to be excited. Again, I was at that last meeting that Financial Sense had, and I got so excited that I learned how to do something new with groups. And I was like, this is so exciting. I feel like this one thing was worth the entire hour I was there.
Yeah, I love that. And there's a lot to unpack here. So, and this is something I did definitely want to talk about. Like, when we'll come back, I do want to come back to like talking about creating the vision, communicating that to the team. Like, why is this important? What is the value? What problem or pain point is this going to solve, right? Why would they want to implement this, right? And something that's going to get them excited about it, right? And then communicating that vision. So we'll come back to that. But I want to talk about something you were talking about. I was like, it's fluid, right? Like it's not just hey guys, here's an email. This is the software we're going to be using. Good luck, right? It's like, even if you do have like an in-person meeting, like let's sit down, do a lunch and learn. It's not just one meeting. It's like a continual thing. And we talk about this, and you guys were mentioning this, like it's repetitive. So like maybe it's once a week, maybe it's, you have that meeting, you sit down, talk about the software, let's walk through it. And then you meet every 2 or 3 weeks and then you check until you get full adoption. Right. So it's not a one and done thing. And I'm curious. So like, Dave, you mentioned, you have the weekly meetings where you save some time to talk about what's new. How is it working? Hope, do you guys do something similar? Do you guys have like let's call it like a lunch and learn, or like a just like training session for all the systems we're using? Is that something you guys implement as well?
Yeah. So I do like a major one kind of once or twice a year. But in order to keep things kind of going, because you're constantly changing maybe how you're using it, or, a step of the process is just realizing that night needs to be communicated team wide. So if we make a decision management wise, we're thinking through the steps, and then it's like, okay, this needs to be changed in the process manual, right? But then it also needs to be communicated to the whole team, not just to the management, right? So many times we make changes and tweaks, and then when we go to double check something and it's not done, they're like, well, I was never told. So we have to stay on top of like our own management process to educate the whole team, not just the people that are there that day, And so my team does meet once a week. And if there's little tweaks that we're making, we make sure that's done in the manual, and then we make sure that's communicated to the team. And then again, that third step is management has to follow through and make sure that stuff is being done, right? So if you're never following through from a management perspective and making sure the processes are being followed and holding the employees accountable to follow the process, and give them feedback on that, then you're still going to have some friction and some trouble,
And we have to talk in their language. And when I say talk in their language, is some people learn from doing, some people learn from being taught, some people need a checklist that they can reference. And so it's about putting those tools available. So I think somebody put in chat, that they love the financial sense videos. Yes, that is awesome. I love them too. They're great. They're effective. But for somebody that doesn't learn that way, you might have to put it into a checklist form that, hey, go here. Mm-hmm. So I know, one of my co-firmers, they put a link that brings them to a Google sheet that's like a how-to. Check one, write down the list. It's about how are they learning, and again, keeping it alive on a weekly or monthly basis helps you understand the style of your team member and what do they really need. But it is also key, Hope, like you said, I feel like there's all these times where you're just tweaking it and you think that people will get it. And again, we have to remember, you're not just setting and leaving and being like, I hope you figured out what I did this week.
Yeah.
I love that. I think it is important to really think about your team and how do they learn, right? Like, speak in the language that they speak, train them in the way they want to be trained, right? That's going to definitely improve adoption. And I'm actually curious, we're talking about like also like accountability, like you have to go back and make sure, like, is it actually happening? Who does that in your firm? Who is your implementation champion per se? Like who owns, is it one person? Is it multiple people? How do you guys decide who that is?
So I'll go. There's three partners. I'm the original kind of owner of To the Rescue, but then I've brought in 2 partners since then, and we share the load to some extent. We do have kind of defined roles, but I like Amber is another owner, and she's like our software guru. So how software works, she understands all of that stuff from like the IT perspective. And I'm not gifted in that. It drives me nuts. I just need it to do what it needs to do. And I can communicate what I want it to do, right? But I can't get it to do that. And so recognizing where that's not your gift, and so saying, hey, I can't help with this. You need to go check with her, right? And so understanding just kind of the community there. And she loves that stuff. And she loves answering questions and helping people with tech stuff, right? I don't want to help you with that. I'll talk to people all day. I don't want to deal with technology. And so anyway, hopefully that kind of answers that question. Is just defining who is supposed to handle that. And there does need to be a clear, like, who do you go to for help if something's not working, right?
And I would agree. And your team is larger, so I think that's an imperative for a larger team. My team being smaller, we're in each other's business all the time, every day. I mean, it's like we're like we all live next door to each other, and which is close. I mean, some of us do, but it's. We also had to kind of set that standard too. We had to say that somebody had to be the end all, the person that you go to with these problems. But at the same time, it's about in these weekly meetings, let's talk about what's going on, but then let's also review what we're doing. And, so not just so think client review on a month end, going through their financials and teaching them how to read a financial statement. We're doing the same thing, but in financial sense. How do we read and understand it? But what do I need as an owner to understand the team is doing? What does the team need that might be different than me? And in those meetings, it's really identifying like, hey, I didn't know that you did or didn't do this. How do we get that answer? And the employee saying, I don't want to keep clicking all the time just so I'm working. So it's how to balance that work out without making it just busy work.
Yep, completely agree. And so I have another question, which comes to like the actual implementation. And we see this a lot. Do you implement the whole thing at once, or do you start small? Do you, like, for example, financially, we have like workflow, portal, requests, CR, like the database, like time tracking. Do you break it down into bite-sized pieces for your team? And if you are, how do you decide what to start on, right? Like, what is like the way to like prioritize? Let's implement this first versus this. And then when do you say, okay, we've got this. How do you know that? And then move on to the next piece that you want to implement in your firm, if you are breaking it down into bite-sized pieces. And we can start with you, Dave.
So again, referencing my smaller team, I felt like, let's just do it. Like they're the ones that came to me with that they want the software. So let's do it. So we launched workflow and projects and time and attendance. We launched a lot of that at the same time. But then we did kind of splice out and say, you know what, the customer communication, these pieces of the pie, we're going to hold back on, because I want to make sure we understand what we're doing and that we really are going to use this program, and we're going to use it at 90%, not 10%. Because that seems to be a problem when you get a new app is we love it, and then we forgot to use it. And so I think it's important to splice out or to stage things but it really depends on your firm and what your firm needs are. And I go back to what I said earlier, which is pain points. What was my pain point? My pain point was growth. We were growing faster than we were able to track what we were doing. And so I needed a place for us to not forget something, not to forget that, oh, we have to reconcile the bank account for this one client that we only do every 3 months. You know, that person kept getting forgot. And I think that's how you have to do it. But as new features come out, you're having to also do it again to decide, is this new feature something I'm launching today, or is this not something that we need, that the team's ready for? So how do you identify it? I go back to keeping it alive, keeping the conversation alive with your staff, having them feel comfortable saying they are not comfortable or they don't want to or they need help on. And I said that's what helps us as owners or implementers, really focus on what to do next. But I'm interested to hear Hope with the larger firm and how she did that.
Sure. No, so I would agree with pretty much everything Dave said. Oftentimes, I have the management team try the stuff first to kind of work out the kinks, right, or the tweaks, or to make sure that our vision that we're communicating is correct. And so we'll test it out for a little while. But I also think it depends on the software. In financial sense specific, we started out small, right? What was our thing? We needed to hit due dates, and we needed to see from a management perspective where people were on their work. So that's what we started with. And then later on, we added the client task list and the client communication. And every time we've been able to implement something new, it's definitely been revolutionary, very helpful, right? And sometimes you're going to implement something that doesn't work and you need to pull back, right? So you might try something within that software and you're like, this kind of mirrors this other thing we're already using and this is working perfect. So let's just leave it alone. And this, is still not working. So you have to be able to kind of juggle it and be okay with not using something if it's not working, but not dragging that whole process out either to drive people crazy, right? Because again, you have to think through your team and the tasks. And so, implementation small in steps, especially when you're using a software for multiple purposes, is what I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So what happens, you're going through this implementation process and you have that one team member that just doesn't do it, right? Like, how do you handle those situations where you have that one or two team members that cannot just get with the program, they can't use the software? You've had several meetings with them, you're doing the recurring trading. How do you handle that type of situation and try to get adoption? And what happens if they don't adopt the platform? What do you typically do in those situations?
Hope I'll let you
know. You go first.
I know some of my employees are watching, and I know that they're laughing right now. So I'll call this the quarter 4 hope response. If you don't want to do what's best for the team, which is what I'm the leader of, then you don't need to work here. Whatever you're bucking the system for, we've already messed with it. We've already decided it's what's best for the team, because that's how I structure my business, is what's best for the team. It's the same way we bring on clients. Is this client the best for our team, right? Do they communicate effectively? Are they nice? Are they, all these different things and these structures of what we go through. They have to trust me as the leader that I've looked at that and decided this is what's best for the team as a whole. And if you don't want to jump on that board, then after dealing with, if you're just not tech savvy and you just need to understand and learn a little bit longer, if that's the issue, we can work on that. But if it's just you not wanting to do something that we've already determined is best for the team as a whole, then you're not the right fit for working here. That's just it.
I agree. I
Right.
agree wholeheartedly. Again, my situation was different. Am I going to fire myself because I'm not, implementing it as quick as my team wants me to? I'm backwards, but I am. I'm bought in. I'm excited about it, and I feel the same way that if I were to bring on a team or even other things that we're working on, like Tanya Schultz, they said it. Culture is really important. So it's about teaching and having them trust what we're saying, like that, hey, I am the owner, but I am a team member. I'm also doing caseload work. I'm using the same program you're using, and I want us to do this together. And if you don't want to be a part of that togetherness, like, let's figure out why first. Maybe you're not in the right position. Maybe you're not an accountant, but you're somebody that would rather be, in marketing. And we're still going to use financial sense for my marketing, but maybe that's the problem, is your position. And if not, then, hey, let's find you something out in the world that better fits with your version of culture.
Okay. No, I agree. I love the strategy of like, this is what's best for the team. We've decided this as a firm, right? If you can't get on board, I mean, you like, and I love how you put it, Hope, like if it's like a tech issue, like you're just not as tech savvy, like, and we try to we get past those pieces. And it's really just coming down to you just don't want to do what we need to do to be successful and what we've all decided needs to be successful. Uh, then it's better to part ways. I like that. I think that's a really good way to go about it. Now, to piggyback off that, what's best for the team? Is there like after you implement a software, like you guys sat down, you said, this is what we think is best. But after you've implemented it, is there like a meeting where you sit on the team, like, is it working like we thought we would? Is it solving the problem that we wanted it to solve? Do you have like that type of feedback loop with your team?
I think that I do, because a lot of, again, my situation being different is it working for me as the owner? Like, am I getting what
Mhm.
I need to get? But also, are they still getting done what they need to get done, and are they happy with the decision of what we put together? I think that to me has been huge in understanding what to do, and how to keep going. But I think evaluation of pain points, that should be a normal conversation all the time.
Mhm.
Is where are you at? What are your new pain points as you continue to grow, and what might be happening in the scenario? It looks like we lost Hope. I'm sure she'll jump back in a
Yeah,
second.
I think we did.
I think that
Um,
Mississippi's got some wind going on or something.
But we can go on while we wait for her to jump back in. Um, this is an interesting question I see a lot when it comes down to implementing something, right? Typically you're implementing something to solve a pain point. You're having a problem and you want to solve it, so you look for a tech solution. Is it better to be proactive, right? Is it better to implement something before you actually experience the pain point, or do you typically wait till you feeling that pain point to implement it? Like, what have you seen work better for you, Dave?
I think overall, I think that I would probably agree with most accounting firms out here. We always wait until we already have the pain point, and we probably had the pain point for 6 months or a year before we actually try to make a change. And some of that might be we're trying to force whatever application we are using to do what we want it to do to fix that problem that we know about. And 90% of the time, there really is no such thing as an all-in-one app. One app that can solve all my problems. But there can be, like I always say, financial sense. Financial sense is my hub. It's the hub of my business. And I can bring in Listio for communication. I can bring in Scrutinize for reviews. I can do these other apps that then bring me into my ecosystem. But again,
Mhm.
if I have a pain point that isn't being solved by this, how do I identify it? And again, I think that we're late launchers, or on the flip side, when we're new in the community, new in showing up to conferences, we have that shiny object syndrome, and we're buying everything. And then now we have 5 solutions to do the same work, and we're just creating busy work. So again, it comes back down to what you said specifically, which is pain points. What is your pain point? Take your time to decide what you're going to do and work with the app that you're in. So we're in Financial Sense. We're going to reach out to you and your team and say, here's my pain point. Is this something that the software can fix? Because that would be the best option in what we're doing.
What about you, Hope? I mean, and you may do differently, right? But do you think it's better to be like proactive and implement before you start, like for financials workflow? Typically, like it's about when your team's growing, right? And you're losing visibility. You don't know, everything's starting to become a little disorganized. You're losing control. So then you implement a workflow tool. But do you think it's better to be a little proactive and implement something before you actually really start to feel that pain point? Or you think it's just better to wait till it becomes a problem?
I agree with Dave. I don't know that we're good at forecasting the issue. I think we work so hard on trying to get whatever we have, or we create it, or try to do this workaround thing to make something work as long as we can. And then, move from there. So I feel like just in general, we're trying to sometimes, what is that saying? You're sticking the square peg in the round hole, trying to make it work, just to not add another thing. But I think maybe in terms of changing that dynamic in our industry would be seeing how much faster we can identify the problem and realize there's not going to be one solution for everything we do, because it's just like bookkeeping, right? Like, we're not just bookkeepers. We do so much other stuff that nobody sees or knows about. And there's just not one app for that. We have to see how things can work together. And again, it just goes back to financial sense, like you guys being open to collaborating with us to make something be better for us. And it does help us. It has helped us eliminate some things along the way, right? Because you are specific to our industry. But we have to identify those things sooner and be ready to pivot and move on that. And then have that process in place, right? Who's going to test it? Who's going to try it? What's the vision? What pain point does it need to fix? And all that, and be ready to just move on it.
Okay, perfect. So we're in our last 5 minutes. So I'm going to jump into the questions. We have some questions from the audience. So the first one is, how do you convince the team that they can help update it and should share thoughts to better the process? So like, really, how do you get their feedback on how to make the process better and improve what you're implementing?
And that they can do it. You've got to get your team empowered in understanding that they're empowered, that you're not going to break financial sense. You're not going to break my whole process for the firm. I want to hear from you. I want you to make updates, and I want you just to do it. Like, if it's going to work, do it. And then if it does great, communicate it with the rest of the team.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it goes back to culture. They feel comfortable to give you feedback. Have you communicated as a manager and owner that you're open to that, them giving you that update? Have you communicated, like, from a humble perspective, hey, I don't know everything and I'm not using it like you, so I need your feedback, right? And then taking that, right? I may not use everything you give me, but let's talk about why you feel like this would be an improvement, right? Let's talk through what that looks like, and then use it if it is going to be better.
Perfect. Okay, so next question. I love this one from Rose. Never mind the team. How do I remember to use it?
I love this one because that's my problem. Like, I struggle with that problem in the beginning is, I have a caseload just like my team does, but I'm so old school, with papers and sticky notes, that I could not remember, like, I needed to clock in. I need to do the same thing my team members are doing. So it's about having somebody to hold you accountable. So I told my team to do the same thing. I said, you need to make sure that I'm doing my job in financial sense. So I signed my clients to my team as, like, you need to review my work and make sure that I logged in and checked the box. Here we're going to together on every Monday when we meet, we're going to go through our timesheets and we're going to show you what Dave's timesheet looks like. And it's either going to be great and I did it all, or I didn't. Part of that is calendaring. Get it on your calendar. Put it on something that reminds you, or your iPhone reminders saying, hey, did you get into financial sense today?
Yeah,
love
I
that.
totally agree. I did not like sometimes I don't like technology. I admitted that. And I don't understand how it works if it's not going to just work at the moment that I log in, right? And that's just not reality these days. But I did have an epiphany that if I'm asking my team to do something, I need to also be doing it. And that's my accountability, right? And I tell my managers and my other owners the same thing. Hey, if we're asking people to do this process, we need to follow the process ourselves, right? And so yeah, I agree.
Okay, I love that. Holding yourself accountable. So next question is from Shannon. What are some of the criteria when testing out new software to use with your team?
I
Again,
think
you
for
have to have,
me that, oh, go
go ahead.
ahead.
I was just going to say real quick is that, again, you have to have a need, you have to have a pain point, you have to be solving something. And some of that has to come from a team buy-in right off the bat. Before you even start looking or testing new software, you have to understand what the purpose is that you're testing the new software for. There's so many apps that do the same thing. Why? Are we making change to make change, or are we making change to have change that's effective and that's going to help the firm?
And in our field, is it a duplication of something we're already doing somewhere else, just in a different way, right? Is it fixing the pain point and creating additional steps to work, or are we really filling the hole of a pain point that needs to be fixed?
Yep. Okay. So I don't understand this question. Is there one thing FC does that no other firm does? Because we're not a firm. Uh, but let's go to another one. So see, there's one by Josh I really want to cover if we have some time, and it's how do you help staff members who may not be as tech savvy? So we talked about, if it's a tech issue, like they're just not tech savvy enough, we work on that. We mentioned that earlier. How do you solve that? Do you book like calls with them and maybe someone at like a customer success person at the company to kind of walk through the software with them? Is there something you do in particular to help those not so tech savvy team members and like adopt and understand how to use the software?
Yep, it's one-on-one, and you just have to meet with it, right? Does the manual make sense? Does the process make sense? Is there a video they can watch that takes them step by step, right? And then kind of one-on-one training, like walking through some real life scenarios, and then repetitive, right? There's things that we need to do repetitively to then get it locked into our brain. They don't need to understand all the IT behind it. Just how do you log in? What are the steps that I need to do today to work on it? And if you give that day by day, then that's what you need to do for them to give that tool.
And it's about creating those tools and understanding what they need again, because maybe watching those videos is really helpful for them, but they need to watch the video and then have a follow-up right after the video to reinforce what it might be. And I did want to just touch base on that, the question we did skip on what is the one thing that Financial Sense does that nobody else does? Because I really think it's an amazing question. I know it kind of might have been posed differently, but I can tell you the number one thing that Financial Sense has and no one else has is the support and the listening to accountants and people that are using their software. They want us to do what we want to do, and they want us to tell them what we need. And I think that we can say that comes to all apps want to hear from us. They don't. They really don't. They have their own mission and vision, and Financial Sense isn't that way. I mean, Financial Sense could be in every industry. They're staying in accounting industry for a reason. So thanks for asking that question, because it was awesome.
100% agree.
Yeah. And I want to say, I think it's funny because like no one on our team has an accounting background. Like I don't know anything about the accounting space. I'm not an accountant, never been a firm owner. No one on our team has been. No one had an experience in this space, but I think that's a strength for us because it forces us actually to listen as much as possible to customers, because we come in with no assumptions of what you guys want. We have to listen and see what you guys want, and that drives every decision we make at the company. And in everything we do, from even workflow con, like we're getting a lot of feedback from you guys on what's working, what's not. So next year it's going to be even better, bigger and better. So I think that's it. I think there's another session in 2 minutes. Probably need to hop off, right, Tessine? She probably can't speak right now. She's in the backstage. But yes, I think we're good here. I want to thank everyone for joining us. Dave, Hope, thank you for this panel discussion. It was great having time to chat with you guys. Really good insights today.
It was fun.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. See you, everyone.
Good.